When our people need direction, we give their status a correction. It's never about what you do, but how do it.
Yo, peace and love, family. It's your boy, BrothaTruth, and we are live with another episode of Do You Know the Truth with your host, BrothaTruth. And today we got a special, dope episode, man, because I think it's going to help a lot of people understand what's kind of going on today in society, especially with Trump being in office and doing a lot of executive orders. I think a lot of us should really understand what executive orders are. So today's lesson is going to be over executive orders. All right. Before moving forward, I would like to say that all of my lessons are kind of rooted in history, because I've just happened to learn that a lot of these laws and things like that are easier to understand when you know the root of where they came from and why they were created, and just really how this whole system operates, right? So today we're just going to get right into the lesson, and we're going to first start off with what is an executive order. Let's get into the definition. An executive order is a directive issued by the U.S. president. It manages operations of the executive branch and has the force of law if it's based in the Constitution as well. Okay, so this is very important, because there can never be an executive order that's truthful, that's lawful, unless it's based within the Constitution. It has to be aligned with that. It cannot be an executive order where they just pulled something out of their ass, as man, and just wanted to create their own laws. It already has to be in alignment with the Constitution that was already written. Okay, now it's important to know when we're talking about executive orders, they also have limitations, very strict limitations. Even as the president, he cannot do as he wants to do. He's only allowed to do what he has the powers to do within the guidelines of the Constitution. If you ever overstep those boundaries and do something that you aren't lawfully authorized to do as a president, it'll throw the whole system into whack, and it'll now be de facto. Okay, it won't be organic like the Constitution was when the founding fathers first put it together. Okay, so let's talk about exactly what the president can and cannot do with these executive orders. A president cannot create new laws or allocate funds, which are powers reserved only for Congress. All executive orders must be rooted in existing authority granted by the Constitution. All right. And they can be overturned by courts, as we've already seen with Donald Trump and many different things. They can be overturned by federal courts. Also, all executive orders can be nullified by Congress through new legislation that contradicts the order. Now, before moving forward in our lesson, I think it's important that we go back in history, right? And let's go back to the 1800s, specifically 1861, and let's talk about Abraham Lincoln, okay? Because again, Abraham Lincoln played such a crucial part in what we know today as the United States. And this is because during his time in office, there was the Civil War and things of that nature going on. Now, before the Civil War actually took place, you had 11 states that actually seceded from the Union, and they created what we know today as the Confederate States of America. And these were mostly states in the South, such as South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, and then you also have Virginia, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Now, this is very, very, very important, because once these states seceded from the Union, you had Washington, D.C. that was surrounded now by all these southern states. And he was afraid, basically, that they were going to rebel and abolish and try to march on Washington, D.C. So that's when you had Abraham Lincoln, who chose to take powers into his own authority. Now, we've already talked about executive orders and what they have the power to do. So this moment, he saw that, hey, the United States and DC is under attack. So Abraham Lincoln decided to suspend the habeas corpus. Now, the habeas corpus is one's way and ability to petition to a court if he's basically imprisoned wrongly, unconstitutionally. But you had Abraham Lincoln, who took that away. He suspended the habeas corpus. So basically, if anyone chose to march on DC, he could have them arrested, and they couldn't petition to the judge to basically say, hey, this is unconstitutional while I'm here. So what he did was totally wrong and outside of his powers. Now, I'm going to point out certain parts of the Constitution before we move forward, because this is going to explain exactly what Abraham Lincoln did wrong. Let's go to Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, and it states, "The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it." Now, key issue. The Constitution places the power in Article 1, which is the legislative powers, not the executive powers. So basically, only truly the Congress had the permission to suspend the habeas corpus, not even the executive branch, which would be the president. So Abraham Lincoln totally stepped outside of his powers and his authority to do something that Congress only had the authority to do. You see what the issue is? That was the legislative branch that was supposed to. The executive one did it though. So this automatically caused everything to go de facto. It was now unorganic in the way that the founding fathers originally put the Constitution together. The president overstepped. Which now leads us to the next part of this presentation is we have a United States now that is de facto, and now what are we going to do? What's going to happen? Did they ever do what was supposed to be done to get back in a de jure state? No, they didn't. And now you have the Rothschilds that saw opportunity, because they were like, yo, well, hold on. Maybe we don't have to get rid of Abraham Lincoln. You know, maybe not just yet. Let him go ahead and run this plan and do what he does with the emancipation and free the slaves. But then we'll go ahead and knock him out the picture, and we'll go along with our agenda of adding in this 13th and 14th Amendment, because they were getting ready to create a whole new corporation in 1871 with the Naturalization Act and the Organic Act, when they created a whole new United States Incorporated. Because not only were we shifting into a de facto governance, but we needed to actually create a real United States corporation that we could now naturalize people into and operate in this new de facto manner, right? Now, what was it about 1871 that they converted all Americans into U.S. citizens? And that's when we became subjects of this new corporation that they created, y'all. But it gets even a little deeper, because in 1933, that's when you have Franklin D. Roosevelt, who actually declared a National Banking Emergency Act. And ever since then, the United States has been in a state of emergency. And every single president since then has signed off and kept us in that state. And now that we have this new de facto governance, that means executive orders, which are done by presidents, that only govern through decree rather than legislation, okay? Because again, they're not going through actual Congress and legislation to actually get things done. They're just doing it on their own authority, right? So this is basically what's kind of happening right now when we see with Donald Trump, or with any president for that matter, is just because truly they're not doing things on behalf of the act of Congress. So it's important to know, y'all, that ever since 1861, this United States of America, as we know it, has been operating in a dual legal system, okay? You have legal and you have lawful. You have constitutional and you have statutory, okay? You have English common law and you have Roman military law, civil law. What world do you operate in? Right? Are you Mr. Anderson or are you Neo? Are you public or are you private? That's truly the question here, okay? And once you understand that, then you can actually know what cap to put on and how to operate and do business commercially, publicly, and private. It's not about becoming sovereign and going to go hide in the woods somewhere. You got to actually know how to come back and do business, right? And then build your private world. That's what this is all about. De jure versus de facto. Now, this is always pretty simple and easy to remember, because it's like organic and inorganic, real and unreal. All right? And we must learn that when we're talking about law and constitutions and things of that nature, when we say de jure, we're talking about pre-1861, before everything was thrown into whack by Abraham Lincoln. That was the de jure government, okay? And then post 1861 is when they created a de facto, right? Something like made in the image of, like it's a de facto government, but it wasn't the real thing. It was a de facto, Okay? So let's break down the exact differences between de jure and de facto so that you could get a full grasp of what it means moving forward, lawfully speaking. De jure means by law, which is the organic constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Magna Carta, the maximums of equity, common law principles. Those are all de jure principles of law, okay? And then you have de facto, which is emergency acts, bills, codes, statutes. These are things that man created, right? And they create these and change them at any moment in time, right? Today, the speeding limit might be 30 on this street, and tomorrow it might be 40. Right? Okay? That's not constitutional. And again, the only way that you can change the Constitution truly and organically, de jurely, is if you actually have a convention. I've never seen a de jure constitutional convention ever be held. So we must understand that real law that's still in play since 1861 has just been left dormant. We just got to go back and pick it up and start operating under it because it's still there. We just chose to be a part of this corporate conception that was created after 1861, when really the organic and truth is right back there in the Constitution, and that's where we need to go. Now, it's important that we know 1933 changed everything. And of course, many people know that's when you had the Great Depression and many other things that started during that time. But the most important, I would say, is the 1933 National Emergency Banking Act. So today's lesson is going to be short and sweet, but I just wanted you to know the importance of what an executive order is and the root of where it came from in the state we are in today. So what you see on TV is not actually truthful or lawful or de jure. That is de facto. Some of these executive orders are still in alignment with the Constitution. It doesn't matter because the president is not operating in a de jure manner. He's the administrator of a corporation. Let me bring it back. Ever since 1871, this has been a corporation, and these presidents have been acting as administrators, right, over corporate subjects who are part of a corporation, which is the U.S. citizens, okay? We must go back to operating as U.S. nationals, right? And respect the de jure Constitution that's in place and enforce that. It's there. They all swore an oath to it. And it's important to us to know that it's our job to enforce it. We, the people, are responsible now for enforcing the law. The only way that these things can change and the environment changes is when we come together, right, as we, the people, units of us, and actually start enforcing the law and making them uphold their oaths, their bonds, and all of their offices, yo. Okay? This is why I don't care what any executive order is, because it doesn't apply to us as U.S. nationals and we the people anyway. All right? That's corporate business doing corporate administrative things, and let them do that in their world. We need to focus on ours in the de jure world, right? And start rebuilding what has been left dormant for hundreds of years. Okay? That's where we at with it, yo. It's time. And the number one key players in all of this, I would like to say, is the melanated community, is your so-called blacks and Latinos, because many of the titles are still in your ancestors' name, right? This system will collapse when we can actually come back, learn the law, learn our equitable rights, and know how to enforce them in the actual courtrooms, y'all. We don't even need to sue for money. There is no money. There is no money. The real true value is the land, the soil, okay? The minerals, the rights. That's why we got to go back to our ancestors' avatar being Choctaw, Cherokee, and everything else, and then come back to these federal courtrooms and petition for our equitable reliefs. What kind of equitable relief do you guys want? Oh, we just had a breach of contract. These people here broke all of their treaty laws. They broke all of the rules. We just want what's fair. And what's fair is we want you to return the land. Return the titles. We don't even need your fake ass money. It's already done enough damage. So it's your boy, BrothaTruth. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Do You Know the Truth? And make sure to tap in with us next time. Peace and love.